Welcome back, everybody, to the Newd and Lude podcast. I'm Julie Cole.
And I'm Joanna Derrick.
And we're glad to have you here with us.
Yes, thank you. I feel like I'm not there.
You're in.
Okay.
You're live. I can hear you on the mic.
Okay, good.
So we are in the middle of a multi-part episode.
Yes.
I'm saying it like we're in the middle of a multi-part episode where Joanna tells us about how her life burned down around her.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
So
this is great.
I don't even remember what episode we're on in general, but this is part 3 of your story.
Yes.
This part of your story.
Yes. Yes, this part of the story.
This part of the story.
All right, so gratitude first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So this weekend, I got to be a part of my sister's dance company's newest creation. It was called Infinite, and it was 2 nights. Her show was 2 nights. And it was so cool to just be a part of such a creative endeavor, you know, and also I got to open the show both nights. So it like scratched the itch of my need to, you know, have attention on me for 5 seconds one time a year.
And
in
lots
that
of
way.
comments after the fact. Your intro was amazing.
Yes, yes. And oh my God, you look so good in that blue dress.
You did.
Tell me more.
Fire.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just grateful to be able to be a part of that thing, because that is not my world. That is her world, but that is not my world. It was great. Well,
and you also held space for yourself in that in many ways leading up to it too.
Yes,
So it was a
did.
special night for you.
Yes. And it went so smoothly. And all the decisions that I made leading up to it that I questioned and felt very uncomfortable about, it ended up, I made the right decision.
Yeah, to protect your space.
Yes.
And make it so you could be there in that space.
Yes, and relax and be present and do the job that I'd been asked to do and that I wanted to do well. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and your big thing when we talked about it ahead of time was that you find so much joy in being able to be in that space.
Oh my God, yes.
And, you know,
it's
and that
life.
You wanted to feel that joy and you did not want to be distracted.
Correct.
You know, with bullshit.
That's right. That's right. And I wasn't, and it was great.
Yeah.
And I got to relax, and it was beautiful.
Yeah. I'm grateful that I get to, you know, I'll have to say, I'll just piggyback on that and just say, like, being a part of the process and watching it unfold for you. Like, I know that in my own life, like, one of the things is like that discomfort that we have with setting a boundary to protect ourselves or our space or a future event. It can be really uncomfortable. And then to have it come into fruition and be like, oh my God, this is why I do this for myself.
Yes.
Like, you know, it's how many times do we compromise the things we care about most because we're uncomfortable with that moment, you know, that moment. And so, you know.
Yeah. And I just told my second oldest last night, she called me and she had made a decision. And she was very upset about it and felt very, you know, like disturbed and uncomfortable about it. And it's like, Lou, just because you feel uncomfortable about this decision doesn't mean it's the wrong decision. You know, in fact, it probably means it's the right decision.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that that's the piece. And so we can definitely talk about the empowerment pieces another time. But I just, I always appreciate that. And watching people, you know, live it out in their lives, you know, and how it's multifaceted. That moment that you set the boundary and you feel really uncomfortable brings a lot of grief. And then the moment where you really celebrate it brings a lot of grief too, because then you grieve all the times before that you lost a chance to be a part of whatever it is because of the compromise. You know, the compromise is that thing that has to build up into the point where we're just like, fuck that. We're not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
Like critical mass.
Yes. Yes.
So speaking of critical mass, I think that actually is a good segue.
It was. It was.
So we left off last week. Okay, so if you're listening, this is part 3. We have 2 parts before this. So part 1, part 2, I would argue. I could argue with you too.
We can argue about anything.
Yeah. I certainly can. I will encourage you to go back and listen to parts 1 and part 2 before you listen to this part, because we're picking up in the middle of the story. And so we left at a cliffhanger, which was, you know, you're looking through the little, the diamond in the finger. You see him on the phone in the bathroom, and he comes out masturbating on the phone.
Yeah.
You know, with
to
holding
the phone.
Oh, yeah.
He was
I'm gonna have to work on my communication skills today.
He was
looking at something on the phone and masturbating, and he comes out.
Yes.
If you're just listening and you haven't heard the rest of the story, this is going to sound really off.
At this point, just turn it off.
Especially with the name of the podcast.
Yes. At this point, turn this off and go find 1 and 2. Yes.
Anyway, on a serious note, he comes out, you question it.
Yes.
And it was like we said last week, it was like taking the thread at the edge of the garment and all this, you didn't realize it, but it was like the critical thread is just going to pull the whole structure apart.
Yes. And like you took it one step further, and it's like it was like cranking a lawnmower. I pulled the thread and it set the whole fucking thing on fire.
Yeah.
Which was my life.
Yeah.
Yes.
Burning.
Woo! Yes. Okay. So you want me to start into, okay.
So kind of repeat that part real quick. So
okay.
He comes out.
Yeah. He comes out. I'm sitting on the couch, like deer in the headlights, kind of thing. And I ask him, what were you doing in there? Mm-hmm. I knew what he was doing, but like, what were you looking at on your phone? Mm-hmm. And he says, I do this, 4 times a year to clean my pipes. And then it was, well, okay, fine. It's every month, every week, every day, sometimes multiple times a day. And I was like, skirt! I knew at that moment, this is not normal. Right. This is disordered in some, I didn't know that word then, but
It's problematic.
It's problematic. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, I'm trying to get comfortable. My back is hurting today for some reason. So, if y'all see me scooching around a lot, that's just ignore me.
Fidgety.
Yeah.
So, I say to him, we'd already been talking about doing some marriage counseling. Mm-hmm. We may have even started at that point. I can't remember. But I said, we've got to bring April in on this, our counselor, and because I'm not okay with this. This is not comfortable. Something is not right. That was on a Monday or Tuesday. We went, I went, he refused to go at first. I went on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I'm sitting in her office at our church. She was a pastoral counselor. And he's refusing to come. I think he had come and he got up and stormed out, left. And then 10 minutes later, we see these giant headlights come through her office window, hear this loud ass diesel truck. And he has if the window's right here, he has pulled up to right here in a very threatening way. Mm-hmm. And April called him and was like, turn your damn headlights off, turn your truck off, back up, you're not doing this to her or me, because he was mad at both of us. And he said, she said, either leave or come in. Mm-hmm. He came in, and at that point, I think April's been down this road before with other clients. And so
this is when she was in the front corner.
Yes, of the church. Okay. Yeah.
So this is for everybody, this is the far end of the building, the far corner, and her office was tucked in the corner of the front door, the administrative office.
Yeah, and the parking lot was right out front.
Yeah.
And so I think she realized the level of severity to this situation. And so she either texted or called the lead pastor and asked him to come because he has experience with this. Mm-hmm. And he shows up. So Mike's in the office. He
has experience specifically with being a person in recovery from sex addiction.
Yes.
And he was open about it.
He was open. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it was part of his whole, he told the spiel when he was getting hired, interviewing with the church and the whole nine.
Yes. Yes.
And I have to say, it segued getting a bunch of 12-step meetings started at the church and really did a lot of good stuff.
It did.
His admission.
It did.
Mm-hmm.
So
another story for another day.
That's another story. Yes. Okay. So I can say his name.
Steve?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So Steve shows up and says, Mike, I think Mike at that point had admitted that he'd, watches porn and maybe he'd sent some texts or videos or pictures to a couple women that I didn't know. And Steve says to him, there's something you're not telling us. What's the big thing that you're not saying that you think is going to just bring this entire thing down. And so somehow we move into the conference room. It starts getting real fuzzy at this point for me. We move into the conference room.
Oh, that's ironic, because eventually where do you go?
Yeah.
For the S&on meetings?
Conference room,
yeah.
Yes. And so we're standing there. I don't think we ever sat down. And Steve is just pushing Mike and pushing Mike and pushing Mike. Like, what is it? What do you need to say? What's the thing? What's the thing? And he finally says it. I've been having sex with this person. And I remember hearing the name, and it was the name of an ex-girlfriend of his also. And I was like, what? I mean, I had not seen her, no whiff of her anywhere. I've still to this day don't know what she looks like. And I'm like saying her name in my mind, and then all of a sudden, I realize who it is. Mm-hmm. And it is a girl who was at our house every day, probably. Mm-hmm. Babysat Colton. Mm-hmm. I would
of age.
Of age. She is of age. Yeah, she's an adult, but she's a girl compared to me at that point. You know, I was 40.
I needed to clarify that, because the choice of the word yes. girl, like, she's yes. younger than she is older, but of age.
She is of age for sure. But she is not 40 years old, and she is young enough to my 40-year-old self that it was like, you know.
I think a 30-year-old now is a girl.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I realize who he's talking about. I take my giant ass water bottle and wham, throw it, knock the shit out of him. I remember he's standing there shocked. He's just gotten hit by this water bottle. Steve sees me charging towards Mike and just steps out the way.
Yeah.
And I wham, shove him. And I went out into the parking lot, and I'll never forget this kid named Daniel, who was a kid at that point, is in the parking lot also. I walk outside and just like scream at the top of my lungs. I mean, guttural, like trapped animal scream.
Yeah.
And he looked at me, and I didn't even apologize, nothing. I got in the car. And
I need to clarify, you're also you're staff at the church at this point.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure too people knew you as somebody who was employed by the church.
Yeah, I was staff and also very involved in the church. Also,
I don't mean to laugh, but I'm like, this kid's like, so it's not, you're not just a member of the church coming out. You're like a staff member.
Yes.
Yeah.
This adult has lost her mind, and in fact I had.
And I want to just segue, just say, because I can remember when my ex, like, it all came, like, the thread came apart, and I can remember him calling me, and I'm like, I'm really glad you're in Charleston right now. And he said, why? Because I said, if you were here, I'd fucking kill you.
Yeah.
Literally, I think I could kill you.
Yeah.
So, like, if you've ever been in that scenario, like, just the thing comes up, it's like,
yeah,
it's beyond reason.
It is. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And especially when it was as close to home, literally, as it was.
Yeah.
And so someone had Colton at home, babysitting him. I made some phone calls to the significant other of this person. Mm-hmm. And thankfully, Mike had already called him and told him, and which I gave him mad credit for doing, I'm sure, because this person was very close to Mike, and the male was. Mm-hmm. And
well, she was kind of too.
Yeah.
So sorry.
No, I mean, hey, it's levity, right?
Yeah. Sorry. Listeners are gonna think we're crazy, but this is why you and I are friends.
That's right. That's right.
She told me earlier I did have a heart. She saw it.
You do, yes. I saw you cry. So get in the car, I go home, and I'm just like, I'm still in robot mode that I've been in, pretty much my entire life up until that moment, but still like so tuned out, so disconnected. And get home, and I like make dinner, you know, just act like it's any old normal day, but the whole time I'm, shaking and, crying and everything.
Everybody walks in, the house is clean. They're like, what's wrong?
Right. And I'm like, nothing's wrong. No, I don't think I did that. I actually think I like probably and told him, which was not a good idea either. So anyway, that was on a Friday. Saturday comes, and I remember I'd called my dad and said, I need you to come. And so we were in.
And did Mike stay at the house that night?
Oh, no.
I was going to say, I didn't think so.
Oh, no. He didn't even try and come home. Yeah. But you know what's funny, though, is so we built houses. That was our profession. And one of our subcontractors, Edward, the roofer, shows up at the house that Friday to get paid because he couldn't get in touch with Mike. And I remember he kept ringing the doorbell, and I wouldn't answer it, but he knew I was inside, And I finally answered, and, I'm like, answer it like a wild woman, and he's like, oh, Miss Derrick, well, you okay, And I'm like, I'm fine, what do you want, And he's like, I just need to get paid. So I went in the safe and got a wad of money and shoved it at him and said, will this do, until you can get in? And he said, yes. So anyway, I just remember that vividly, him entering into the scenario at that point. So
she a crazy bitch.
Oh God, yeah, I was a crazy bitch. So my dad comes. I think maybe not. No, he hasn't come yet.
Yeah.
Saturday though, I got a call from April, the therapist and our counselor, and she said, Mike wants to do a full disclosure. And I'm like, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah.
She said, he wants to tell you everything. And here I thought I knew everything.
You mean there's more?
There's lots more. Yeah, there's lots more. So she said, you don't have to do this, but I would highly recommend that if you think there's any shred of a possibility that you can keep this marriage, or want to try and keep this marriage together, this is part of it. And so I said, when? And she said, we would like to meet at the church, April, Steve, the pastor, me, and Mike on Sunday at 3. And I said, okay, for right now, okay. And she said, you can change your mind. You can change your mind in the middle of it if you want to, but that's the plan. Okay. So I go to church Sunday and run into you. And I asked, I didn't remember this part until you told me about it. I said, where, because you and JP, your husband, obviously always sit together. And I said, where's JP? And he had gone to do something in children's ministry.
Somebody who could get JP to do things that nobody else could asked him to do a favor that morning.
Yeah.
So he was in
he was gone. Yeah.
He was in children's ministry getting slayed.
Yeah. Yes. While I slayed his wife. Yes.
That sounds terrible.
That did. Not like that. No, I emotionally slayed
That is
her.
not part of the story.
No, that's not. So I said, good. I need to, sit with you.
Yeah,
I'll
sit with you. You said, I'll sit with you. And I said, okay, let's do it. You said, can we sit in the back? We sat on the very back row.
Yeah.
Dead center.
Yep. And I, in front of the sound booth. And I put my head on your shoulder.
Did.
And whispered the entire story into your ear. And
I think we cried together.
Yes.
I remember
I feel
that.
certain. Yeah. And I told you, in 4 hours, I'm going to find out the full damage that has been done here, know. And so 3 o'clock came, and Mike and Steve are in the conference room. April is waiting outside in the hall for me, and she looks at me dead in the eyes and says, it's a lot. And if at any point you need to take a break, just ask. And I'm like, the fuck is about to happen? If I need a break.
Yeah.
So, let me backtrack a little bit because this is just funny. And because this speaks to, I think, Mike's mindset also.
Yeah.
So on Thursday, I think it was, I was starting to see the writing on the wall. We had several $1,000s in our safe. And I said to him, don't touch that money. I'm not going to touch it either. Leave it in the safe. Because I'm thinking, you know, I've been a single mom before. I know how this shit goes, you know? So if he leaves me, he's got all the money-making power in our business because I'm not a contractor. He is. I'm going to be shit out of luck, you know, because also at that point, my name was not on the deed to the house.
Right.
I'm not on the mortgage. I have no legal claim. I mean, except I'm his legal wife. Yes. But I don't think mortgage companies care much about that. It's like who's on the deed and who's on the mortgage.
Well, and also it was a premarital asset.
Yes, and it was a premarital asset.
I mean, legally speaking, it was a premarital asset.
Of his.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking I've got to protect myself, and the only way that I can do it quickly is that money that's in the safe. But I told him I will not touch it without asking, you know, or not asking, but like agreeing, you know. And so he agrees. I will not touch that money. He won't touch the money. So fast forward again to Sunday. I walk into the conference room. Mike's right here. Steve's right here. I'm right here. And April's right here. And Mike has got pages of writing. And I remember him starting, and he's starting back like, when I was 7 years old, I did this, and when I remember saying,
I don't need to hear your
I don't give a fuck what you did when you're 10, dude. What has happened from the moment we met each other until right now in time, you know? He's like, oh, okay. And he flips a couple page, but there's still many pages. And so he begins to list every woman, what he has done with them, what they have done together, what it entails, what type of technology it entails, body parts it may have entailed, you know, all that kind of stuff. And at the end of the reading, I mean, he gave this to me, and it was 25 women. And just for his sake, his reputation's sake, Mike's, it was not a sexual like, it was not sex with 25 women, but it was some form of infidelity. Yeah. And so, after I found that out, took a breath, and I don't know what prompted me to do this, but I did. I reached across the table and put my hand on his, and I said, I love you. I don't know why. I mean, I guess because I love the man. I don't know why, but he looked so fragile. He looked so scared, you know, and
he was vulnerable.
So, I mean, he was just...
The gig was up.
The gig was up, yeah. And he had told me everything. And what happened from here, he had no control over because it was all me. Yeah.
And I need to be clear, like, for people who aren't in the recovery world of any kind, right? Like, the full disclosure really is like this opportunity to try to like it's coming clean. Like, it's a way to say I'm showing up here. It's painful as hell.
Yeah.
Right. And there's some people that advocate on not doing a full disclosure, you know, because it's almost like burdening your partner. But like in this context, it was like his way of showing up, and like he could have gotten in the car, driven off, and just gone off into the sunset like he had done in past relationships. Like he was a runner. Yeah. You know, you were a runner. Yeah. It's always funny when two runners find each other, isn't it? You know?
And then one decides to stay. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think it's important, like this is a vulnerable moment.
Yes, very vulnerable.
It's totally destroying your world, but like it's literally like, okay, we're going to put it all out here on the table. Yeah. And he's basically asking you to see him.
Yes. And I saw him. So I told him I loved him. And so Steve, who is well versed in what happens next, the next steps, you know, he puts the machine into play. Thank God for that man in that regard. And so he says, Mike, Joanna, do you want Mike coming to the house? Hell no. So he says, Mike, you need to find somewhere to live until Joanna, you know, either says you can come back or not come back, you know. And he said, I'm going to set up a polygraph test for you. and he went to Charlotte. Was a former FBI agent. And Mike at first bucked on that because he'd been polygraphed before and failed it. He failed it because he lied. Mm-hmm. And so at that point, he's still having trouble understanding.
To clarify a technicality, you don't fail a polygraph test. You're found to be deceptive.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
I just need to be clear about that because there's this misunderstanding, and like it's literally they just do because they do a controlled reading. They ask you all kinds of innocuous questions like your name and your birth date and your address and where you were born and who your parents were. Like literally, they spend a lot of time getting a reading ahead of time,
kind of
a baseline reading, and then they ask these questions, and so like the variance is what. And I need to clarify that having been in a job where we use polygraphs, like it's you don't fail it, you're found to be. The readings or indicate deception.
Well, in my little hurt lay mind, it was fail or pass, and he had failed the one before, but he had not yet put together that happened because he wasn't telling the truth. And if you tell the truth, most likely that won't happen again, So he agrees to do that finally. After he realized that I'm not budging unless he agrees to all the things that Steve is saying needs to happen, And so all of a sudden, my mind, the money in the safe. And I look at him. He's at that point, we're like wrapping up, and I'm going home to Colton and he's going to wherever he's going. And I said, "Did you take the money out the safe?" And he looks at me with fire in his eyes and says, "Yeah, I did." And I was like, "Where is it now?" And he said, "In my truck." And I said, "Well, go fucking get it right now and put it in my hand." And that it was like Rumpelstiltskin, he just did not want to give that to me, but I was not budging. And I think he clearly saw. And Steve also was like, "Dude, did you agree to not touch the money?" And he said, "Yes." And he was like,
"You can give her the money.
Give her the money back then." And he said, "Joanna, are you going to put the money back in the safe?" "Absolutely." So, he gave me the money. I put it back in the safe. So, I go home. He goes to his best friend's house, who is married to one of my best friends. And so it was great because she was like giving me a play-by-play, "Ooh, he looks real sad. Ooh, I think he's been crying. Oh, he's sitting outside right now." Doing like a good best friend. So, so he goes and does the polygraph and there is no deception, which, God, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for being honest. And
which only reinforced your instinct to try to stay connected.
Yes.
Like emotionally, just honoring at least the vulnerability.
Yes. Yes.
I need to be clear, like this is I'm giving this nuance because I don't want anybody to there's nuance to this. Like we're not advocating that if your husband dumps on you that he's had an affair with 25 different women that you just immediately say I love you.
No.
Like the thing about it is that and Mike had a history of cutting and running from relationships when he got called on his shit.
Yeah.
And so he for whatever reason, he's suiting up and showing up.
Yeah.
And so the demonstration of connection, you're hurt, you're pissed, all of these things are happening.
Yeah.
He's got consequences, but he's demonstrating something for you.
Yeah.
He's trying to show up and demonstrate that he's trying to rectify.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to be clear about something also, because there's been a person in my life in the past who has said this particular thing to me, and it was nasty.
Yeah.
And it wasn't true.
Right.
Mike did not do the things that I was asking of him and that the professionals were asking of him because he was scared of me.
Right.
Or scared of what I was going to do to him.
Right. That's what I'm saying. He cut and run from every relationship. Right. He didn't care about cutting and running. He could drop somebody and walk away and do it because he could start over every time.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. There was something with you guys. Y'all were connected.
It was. Mm-hmm. Yes. And it was not because he was scared I was going to take Colton away from him. It was not because he thought I was going to, take him to the cleaners monetarily.
Y'all hadn't been married long enough for that to happen.
No. And also, that's not what he was scared of. He was scared of losing us.
Yeah.
You know? And I think even more importantly, he had come to the end of himself.
Yeah.
You know, he had hit rock bottom, the proverbial rock bottom, but he had like bumped his head on rock bottom, fell to the next rock bottom, and then fallen into 8 degrees of hell.
Well, it's like what we were talking about earlier, where he kind of got to the point where it's like, okay, this is it. Fuck it. I'm done with this.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we were talking about in terms of boundaries, but for him, like, this is all surrender.
Yeah.
Different forms of it, but it's surrender.
Yes.
So he is surrendering. Like, I can either go start over again, or I can show up in this marriage and make it work.
Yeah. Yes. And I'm sure
he had never actually been married before either.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure, I untwist my legs here. I am sure that there was this part of him that didn't want to go through what he'd gone through before. He knew the pain of it, you know, and what it caused, the collateral damage that it had caused. But it was the perfect storm of the connection that he and I had, our children, our collective children, all 5 of them, the life that we'd built together, the businesses that we'd built together.
Yeah.
You know,
and you were coming to the end of your own shit with this too, by the way, because I wrote this down. You said I had been closed off all my life up to this point.
Yes.
So this like opened something for both of y'all.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that moment forward. I mean, it hasn't been the same
Siamago
since then. Yeah.
Okay, so he does the polygraph.
Yeah, he does the polygraph. There's no deception. So that's like, okay, the disclosure was the first, you know, the polygraph test is the next. And then he is to start group therapy and individual counseling downtown at First Pres. And just let me tell everyone right now that if you live in Columbia or the surrounding area and you find yourself in a situation like this, we have a treasure downtown at First Pres for recovery from sexual addiction for the addict and the co-addict partner. And that was also a hard word that I had to swallow. Yeah. The co-addict part. And we can talk about that later.
Yeah. That's Dee Parlato and Tom Barbian.
Yep. Yep. They are a treasure. And so
let me just say his wife is a treasure as a therapist too.
Yes, she is.
Corrine.
Yep. Yep. And she does more like family and even like teenagers. And
she does children. Yeah. She does, you know, I just went out. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, I went out on my mic, or my headphones went out. Hold on. I don't know. I can't hear myself. Oh. I can't hear myself. Anyway, so she does children too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I
actually have referred children to her for years, and I get, you know, oh, there we go. I can hear myself again.
A little short.
Yeah. Let's hope I don't get shocked. No. Yeah, but she does an amazing job.
Yes, both of them.
She does some, play therapy.
Awesome. So he's to start that, and then he is also to go to this workshop at a place called Bethesda in Nashville. And so this is May. Yes, because Mother's Day was the next weekend. I'd been wanting a kitten. And Mike kept telling me, before all this happened, you're not, no cats in the house, no more.
Let me just go ahead and note you already have goats, chickens, dogs.
Yes, and cats, but they're all outside. Right. Yes. I'm like, but I really want a kitten, So guess what my children got me for Mother's Day?
A kitten.
A kitten. As a big fat fuck you to him. Yep. It's great.
Daring him to say something.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
That would be the one thing that he probably swallowed.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what he said is well, if you got a kitten, then I'm getting a kitten too. I was like, great. More kittens, more happy.
Kitten's not code for anything, right?
No, kitten is an actual kitten. So that was Mother's Day. I turned 40 in June, the beginning of June. He still was not back in the house. He went to Bethesda, and they take your cell phone the whole time. And so Jesus Christ on a cracker.
Yeah, you were in your own version of withdrawal.
Holy shit. Yes. And not knowing anything about Bethesda in this type of work. I've always been left.
Yeah.
So here I am, I'm believing he's going to get there and they're going to say something to him, or he's going to come to some conclusion that is, I don't care about you. I don't care about our family. I don't care about our life. I want, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
And so I was at my sister's house having dinner, and he called, and I knew at like 4:00 they were getting out. And when I saw that phone and the caller ID on it, and I heard his voice, hey, baby.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, co-addict part.
Yes. Yes. And so he came home. Then it was my turn to go to Bethesda for a week. And I remember driving to Nashville. I'd never driven that long by myself. And every nasty bit of me was driving in that car. And every little bump in the road, literal, that I would hit, I would blame it on him, and I had 6 hours to just ruminate about everything.
Yeah.
And so he'd been in therapy long enough at that point that the final call that I made to him, I was at a gas station, and I remember I got out and I'm pumping gas and I'm screaming at him. People are looking at me, and I didn't care. I'm just screaming at him. Well, you tell me this and tell me that, because I was wanting to know all of these roads in Chapin, the little town that we lived in, where he would have these hookups with women. I wanted to know every single road for whatever reason. Are you out again? Yeah. Go ahead. Okay. And I remember the last time I called him and I'm screaming at him, and he said, Joe, this is not good for me. This is not good for you, but mostly it's not good for me. And I'm not going to answer any more of these questions. I've answered them to the best of my ability. I have nothing left to offer. And it's not okay for you to scream at me.
And I must say, I think that's a good cutting point for this one.
Okay.
So it's not okay for you to scream at me.
It's not okay for me to scream at
So this motherfucker who caused all this is setting a boundary with you.
Right. And I meant to mention this also. I want y'all to understand the level of betrayal.
Yeah.
Because not only was it someone that came to my house every single day, there were people in our church.
Yeah.
In our small group.
Yep.
The church also trying to not conceal.
People in the church.
People in the church, not the administration, no. People in the church trying to say it's not true, say it was all him and not that person, people that I knew, like professionals in our life that we used in our business and stuff like that.
It's literally like throughout all the cracks and crevices of your world.
Yes.
Like, so everywhere you go, everything you do, you're faced with it.
Yes. And, did he try this with my best friends? Did he try this with my children? Did he try the, and so I asked everybody, the level of betrayal because of the intimacy of the people that it was with, most of them. Some of them I had no idea who they were. It was mind blowing.
And then he's saying,
and then he's telling that mother clucker is telling me.
Who you're going to choose now to not say the F word?
Yes. Is telling me, I think because I know I'll get myself too riled up.
I know.
Telling me that I can't yell at him.
Right. This is not good for me.
This is not good for me.
So that's where y'all, like, I promise you, there's so much more to this story. Like, maybe, this is like the step before the great reckoning for you.
Yes. Yes.
So.
And he hung up on me.
Yeah.
Hung up on me.
And then you went to treatment.
And then I went to Bethesda treatment. Yeah.
So stay tuned, y'all. We will reconvene for episode 4 of this series. Not our episode 4, but the 4th episode or the next episode.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, okay.
Yeah.
Of this series. And I just want to end the way I always do and just say, I just appreciate the opportunity just to allow me to be in this space and to witness this with you. Like I lived through a lot of it with you, but just the retelling of the story has its own, its own ripple effects. And
yes.
so just thank you for the honor of just being able to sit and witness with you.
Yes. And thank you for being able to absorb it and not keep it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I knew Mike and knew the story.
Yeah.
And, I've seen the growth. Yeah. Anyway, so I have the benefit of, knowing the rest of the story,
right.
And being in it. So.
But it's like it goes through you and then passes out. And that's good because keeping it is not good for you, for me, for anybody, for the story.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, everybody. We are on, you can see us physically, watch us on YouTube and Facebook. You can hear us on iTunes, Spotify. I'm missing one. Am I missing one?
That's it?
Huh. Okay. And then Scott, our producer, Palmetto Moose Productions, check him out. He's your guy for everything. And I want to just go back and say also, if you want to know more about Scott, he is like probably one of the most interesting people we know. Seriously. And on our Co-Wellness podcast, which is also on all of those channels, you can find an episode with him 2 episodes ago for the Co-Wellness podcast. It was like,
oh yeah,
so good.
What number was that, Scott? Do you remember?
37?
Don't know. Okay.
36 or 37. So anyway, y'all said it was 34 when you talked about it, but it was actually later than that. But I just wanted to say that, like, we mention Scott every time, and this is an opportunity for people to learn more about Scott. Yeah. Palmetto Moose Productions, thank you for everything you do. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and I love you.
I love you too.
And we will catch you on the next one. Thanks, guys.